Khulekani Mathe van die Banke Vereeniging van Suid-Afrika sluit nou by my aan as ons kyk na die organisasie se planne vir transformasie binne in ons eie finansiële sektor. Hello, how are you?
Good evening, Divan.
I come from the banking environment, and it was about 3 years ago, and before I became an entrepreneur, it's always been white, pale, and male. Why are we battling to transform this industry?
Well, first of all, let's just accept that transformation is absolutely critical, not only in the banking sector, but in all sectors of the economy. And this is something that is accepted by certainly in the industry that I represent, by the leaders of the various banking institutions. And yes, we may not have achieved, call it full transformation, but we certainly are a different banking sector to what we were 10, 15 years ago before we started on this transformation journey.
I'm sure the solutions to transforming the industry is incredibly complex, but Parliament specifically went out to say, let's go and hold some public hearings to figure out what are the different views on how we can transform this industry. What's the main take-out points from these public hearings?
Well, first of all, just to say that as the industry, we really welcome the hearings that were convened by Parliament because, as I've said, transformation is important, and we've been at this for at least 12, 13 years since the coming into effect of the legislation that seeks to put into effect transformation. So it's a good point to take stock of how much we have achieved. Now, understandably, we are 23 years down the line, and the fact that we have not achieved as much as we'd hoped to achieve is starting to raise a level of, shall we say, the patience is running out from various sectors of society.
So what were the proposed solutions?
I mean, the hearings were various stakeholders presented various views. There were those who simply wanted government to intervene more to make sure that there's transformation. But let's also understand that transformation has various elements to it. There were those who were looking mainly at the issues of ownership. There were those who were looking at the extent to which the sector is able to provide finance to all sectors, certainly to small businesses and so on. And there were those who were looking at the extent to which the industry has transformed from a point of view of employment equity. And so for each of those, there would be different solutions proposed. But there's certainly a call out there for much more to be done, and more certainly towards the closure or the closing of the hearings, certainly from the government side and Parliament, a clear message was sent out that we need to do more. We need to look at the financial sector code, the extent to which it is, in fact, taking us in the right direction and doing so at the pace that we desire. Sure. So there's a call to review the targets in the code, for instance.
Absolutely. So I think something that nobody will dispute is the fact that we've got a world-class banking system. I want to find out from you, why is that the case? Why is this kind of the crown jewels? Praveen Gordhan specifically mentioned, and he continued to mention that we've got very well-capitalized banks. What makes us such a massive world player?
In fact, the President of the Republic also made the point in the State of the Nation address in 2016, praising our financial sector for being really one of the best in the world. And this is so largely, and government must take credit for the strength of our financial sector, because this is largely due to the kind of policy environment and regulatory environment that government has put in place and that has enforced. So as an industry, we respond to regulations, we comply with regulations. So government has created this first-class banking system.
I'm sure 2016, the SONA was a completely different world. We sit in a scenario now where we're part of this awful league of junk status economies. Is there a big threat to the banking system at the moment and to the banks?
Well, look, the junk status, sub-investment grade status that we find ourselves in is a threat to the rest of the economy. because one of its major or likely major impacts is that we're going to see a slowdown of growth and possibly even a recession. Now, that is not good for any sector of the economy, let alone the banking sector.
Sure. One big thing, and the banks were incredibly vocal, but specifically the Banking Association about the fikabel. And we now know that the president has signed this law, or has signed it into law. What's the next steps?
In fact, if there is anything that was a bigger threat to the banking system, the first-class banking system that you're referring to, bigger than even the downgrade, is what would have happened to the banking sector had the FIC Amendment Bill not been signed into law. So thankfully, the president has signed it into law, and now we must make sure that it is implemented. Because if it had not been signed into law, South Africa would then have been put in what is sort of referred to as a grey list, and would have been excluded from the global financial system. We wouldn't be able to, I mean, banks in other parts of the world that have banking arrangements with us would have terminated those relationships, and so the economy would have suffered because we wouldn't be able to pay for exports and imports.
So it feels like the president has passed the ball to Malusi Gigaba and the new minister. Now it's in his hands. What does he need to do?
Well, clearly, it's one thing just to put the law in place, but it has to be implemented. And in order for it to be implemented, one, there has to be the resources in place to implement this. I do not know the sort of financial resources available. My sense, though, is that given that this is a bill that the National Treasury had submitted to Parliament, it would have made the financial provision for its implementation. But of course, regulations have to be put in place, and so the minister has to make sure that the regulations are put in place, which will then give effect to the provisions of the Financial Intelligence. I'm
sure you're talking in corridors and you're talking to the rest of your banking peers. What's your feeling? Is the minister going to drag this one out, or is he going to sign? Is he going to move on it?
I have no reason to doubt that the minister is committed to make sure that, well, in the first instance, we protect this important industry, and that we do everything necessary to get out of the situation that we find ourselves in. I think it's been made very clear to the minister how critical this piece of legislation is, and we will certainly engage him on that basis that this is important and that he needs to, if we have any reason to doubt that he is giving it the necessary urgency that it deserves.
Thank you very much. I think there's still a lot to talk about, and we're definitely going to have you back. Let's hope the minister signs this, and promulgates it into the Gazette, and let's move on it. We need it. Thank you so much.